Hi there, this is my review for AEW All In London 2023. Before I actually get into the review, I just want to apologise for how late the video is. Obviously, it is almost a month since the pay-per-view took place, but I just wanted to apologise for how late this review is. Okay, with that, here's my review of the show, starting off with the 0 Hour, which didn't really have much on it. Starting off, we had a contract signing for the match between Miro and Powerhouse Hobbs for All Out. Not much to say. It was your typical signing, contract signing with security. Hobbs built up with the crowd with some cheap heat. Miro came out. I popped quite big personally for him because I'm a big Miro fan. And then Miro and that cleared house, and that it was fine. And then a bit later on we got Tony Schiavone in the ring, and that before getting interrupted by Jeff Jarrett and the rest of Team TNA, which again I was very happy to see them. Obviously, again, cheap heat against the crowd and that. And then they got interrupted by Paul White, aka The Big Show, Anthony Ogogo, and someone called Gado. Crowd pops huge for this guy. I've got no clue who he is. He's a UK Indies guy, but I've never heard of him before, so I was just over the top of my head. So yeah, no clue who he was, but they cleared house, got a big pop from the crowd, and that. So yeah, that was like what took up the most of the 0 Hour. But then we got the two matches that were on the 0 Hour, starting with, which I was surprised about because I thought this was going to be the last match on the 0 Hour, was the team of Adam Cole and MJF, who were main eventing the main show later, which I'll get into their match later on, against Aussie Open for the ROH Tag Championships. And yeah, the match was fine. Wasn't that much to go off of it. Just if you're wondering why I'm looking down, it's just my notes there for the matches. Yeah, the match was fine. It wasn't much because obviously you want to try and protect your two major stars in the main event of your biggest show. So yeah, it was a fine, safe match. But it built to the double clothesline and the kangaroo kick. And with that, with them finally hitting the double clothesline on Kyle Fletcher, Better Than You Baby are the new Ring of Honor World Champion, Tag Champions, and going into the main event, opponents now Tag Champs, and really pushing that story yet again. Can they coexist? And now they are the Tag Team Champions. How will that affect their match later on in the show, in the night? But a very fun little match. Then we got, after that was the second, we first then saw Mercedes Moné, formerly known as Sasha Banks, was in the crowd, or she was in the Royal Box area of Wembley, but she was in the crowd watching the show, so she's there teasing a potential something to do with AEW down the line, hopefully. But yeah, then came the final match on the pre-show, which was Hook versus Jack Perry for the FTW Championship. I really enjoyed this little match. Obviously, it wasn't a massive match, but it was a fun little spot fest to begin with what on commentary say Perry's limo, but in actuality it's a hearse car. You can tell there's a difference, but by now you all know about the whole CM Punk situation. I'm not going to go into that. If you want to hear more about that, check out my quick video I did about CM Punk getting fired. I go into it a bit more on there, but yeah. But back on the match itself, really good. I had a lot of fun with it. Jack Perry's doing really well as a heel. Hook's great as always, looking strong, and yeah, Hook gets the win. Starting off with the main show. So once the pay-per-view properly got underway, we started off with the CM Punk versus Samoa Joe for the Real World Championship. The championship that CM Punk claims that he's never lost. Yada, yada, yada. The match itself was amazing. It's two of the best workers ever. And that, so these two really know how to put on a show. A lot of offense that Punk was dishing out was getting cut off by Joe. Joe did the walkaway, no sell spot multiple times, including Punk doing a dive across body from the ring to the outside that Joe just walked away from, which then led to Joe swinging Punk into the announce table, not through it, but into it, which led to Punk getting busted open. Obviously, the London crowd really heavily booed Punk at a lot of the points in the match, which led to one of my favourite spots the whole night was Punk's whole doing the Hogan and Cena like taunts and moves. So he did the Hogan leg drop, he did the Cena 5 moves of doom, which led to him covering Joe after the leg drop, which Joe kicked out at 1, and then did his own version, the Hulkster Hulk up spot, which was very fun. Overall, yeah, it was a very fun match, and Punk got the win in the end with the Pepsi plunge off the top rope. He hit the Pepsi plunge on Joe, and yeah, as this is CM Punk's last match in AEW now, yeah, it was a really good match, and it kind of feels weird for me because, little story going off the side here, back in 2013, I went to see WWE live in November, literally 2 months before Punk quit and left WWE. And now I've just seen Punk's last AEW match live. So it's a weird parallel that I've seen like one of Punk's last WWE live matches and his last AEW. Weird. But it's one of those things I'm glad I can say I saw CM Punk's last match in AEW live. If that being his last ever wrestling match, or if that being just for now, who knows. I'm not going to go too much into it, but I just thought I would like to share that with you. Then came probably not the... I'm not going to say underwhelming. It was fine. It was there. It wasn't as good as it could have been. It was the 6-man tag of Kenny Omega, Hangman Page and Kota Ibushi versus Takeshita, Jay White and Juice Robinson. First off, loving the Bullet Club Gold's entrance. Obviously, really over the top in that, and I love that. It was great to see Kenny, Hangman and Kota Ibushi live. 3 of the names I would never have thought I'd see live. Obviously, it's a 6-man tag. Obviously, the babyface is playing up a lot, and obviously getting cut down. Hangman with quite a lot of good spots, doing a couple of suicide dives, a moonsault to the outside, and getting some showdowns between Hangman and Jay White, Hangman and Juice. But the big thing is obviously continuing the story of Kenny and Takeshita and Don. And that led to Takeshita getting a small package roll up on Kenny for the win, which furthers their story, to which then obviously in the press conference, it being announced by Don Callis, it will be Kenny versus Takeshita at All Out for a singles match. So furthering that story that Kenny, since Don's left him, cannot buy a win, can't get a win on his own. So yeah, fun little 6-man match. Up next, my match of the night. I loved watching it live and then re-watching it in preparation for this video. Again, seamless. There's one of the Stadium Stampede I'll get into in a bit. Yeah, I think there's some issues. I'll get into them later. But this, from live and watching it at home, seamless. It is so good. The Bucks versus FDR tag match. Obviously, it's two of the greatest tag teams currently working, so of course they're going to have a great match. Too many spots to count, but to start off with, the Bucks doing their attire is Freddie Mercury inspired from their Queen, that famous Queen Wembley show, and with the Bucks doing their own homage parody of Another One Bites the Dust as they came out, related to how they're going to beat the FTR. FTR coming out with armbands for both Bray Wyatt, Brody, and Jay Briscoe. Obviously, with the sad passing of Bray shortly before, literally a couple of days before the show, and obviously Brody 2 years ago, and Jay earlier this year. But yeah, I won't be able to do this match any justice. You need to check this match out for yourself. So I'm just going to go through some bits here. Match starting off very quick with a hockey fight between all four men, then breaking it down into like stuff. And I don't want to say it was the greatest hits, but they did a lot of callbacks to their past two matches, and that, which came to some really great spots of like some like callbacks to like Brett with the sharpshooter, as like the FTR is big Brett fans. The Bucks doing obviously their stuff. Got so into it very quickly. Obviously we got some great counters out of certain moves, and like the amount of times this match felt like it was about to end with like a finisher for a match, not just like a finisher move, but right, that is a way to end a match, and it would have been great. But then a kick out, or just at the last moment, like Dax or Matt would just dive in and like save the match. We got the Bucks going for like V triggers, but missing, and then FTR doing their own version of the V trigger with the kiss and that, and it was just, again, can't put it in more into words at how amazing this match was. But then after all that, the match came to an end after FTR reversed the Melts driver and turned it into the Shatter Machine and that, and picked up the win. But the big thing, which is clearly showing these two teams are destined to do it forever. We had the Bucks after the match not showing respect to FTR when they put out their hand for a handshake. They just walked away. So obviously you could easily pick that up anytime you want next time. And like I said, I think these two teams are destined to do this forever. I don't think we're just going to stop at Bucks FTR 3 or 4. I think we're going to go up to at least like 6 matches with these, and each time they've been able to add something new to the match, which has made it feel great and fresh. Next we got Stadium Stampede, which I mentioned before, which, before I get into the match is a spot fest. It's like, I'll go through what spots I standed out to me. But obviously being in live in the crowd, and I was up in the nosebleed, so it wasn't as if I had a clear view of the ring for everything. But for something like this, where it's brawling all around the arena, wasn't that great a view. Especially because like Eddie and Claudio, they brawl straight away when Eddie comes out. Eddie makes a beeline for Claudio. They immediately go off backstage and like go to the top of the ramp where the entrance way is, and they end up in the top where brawling in the crowd. Meanwhile, obviously you got everyone else around ringside, and then certain people will split off. The main thing I think, and the most MVP person in the match was Cassidy. Obviously, him being his main story being he's been defending his title every week pretty much, and his body is giving up. And being in this match that is torture for your body, he's damaging himself a lot more. Obviously, standout moments. John Moxley introducing a load of wooden skewers, and Penta grabbing him and bashing him into his head. Moxley bleeding, of course, because it's a Moxley match. How can he not bleed? But having the skewers stuck in his forehead and being hammered in by Penta. Gruesome looking, but amazing visual. The return of, obviously, Santana and Ortiz doing some stuff with the best friends. Trent getting flung off the top rope by Mox, landing onto a ladder, and it just really, Trent bounced off of it, and the ladder didn't look like it was going to give. So that looked rough. Obviously, like I said, brawl, and then like I said, watching it at home wasn't that much better, because there was a lot of spots that the camera work, especially in this match, needs improving, because you'd be watching something in the ring and they're setting up for a big move, cut to backstage, and there's Claudio and Kingston fighting with an umbrella, or back in the ring and we're watching like Claudio do the spin, but you're also trying to focus on what's going on outside because there's a big spot, which led to a couple of botches. I believe it was Santana was going up for a spot with Trent on the top rope. Santana fell. They were able to recover and go for the table like they planned, but it was clear that it didn't go well. But coming to the end, obviously pretty much everyone was knocked out, and Cassidy was like the last man fighting Claudio and Moxley, but then Eddie comes down covered in blood, of course, but this time instead of petrol or whatever he had in the tank last time, he's got a barbed wire steel chair, taking out everyone, going for Claudio obviously, and going for Mox. Cassidy able to hit the orange punch on Claudio, and that after Kingston smashed John Moxley through a barbed wire board, which obviously they had used earlier, and was able to get the win. Oh, before I forget, two more spots that were great, and I popped big for. Trent's mum, Sue, made the journey all the way over to Wembley, driving a little minivan up. And earlier in the show, or in the pre-show, we saw that she brought back a tray of cookies. And then we saw the tray of cookies return and get used as a weapon. The other thing was, whilst that was happening with, I think, Wheeler Yuta and Claudio, you had Penta and Santana fighting over near the top of the ramp where there was some tables set up with a ladder. Problem was, it was one of these ladders that only had the steps properly on one side. So Penta was on the side that didn't really have any give, and the ladder broke underneath both men's weight, and it was right on camera. They didn't cut away good enough, but they were able to try and do it again and did the spot. But obviously the damage had been done. So yeah, as much as I enjoy the Stadium Stampede matches and Anarchy in the arena matches, this is probably the weakest one. I wouldn't say it's terrible. It's a very fun match, but there was a lot of botches in it, and I'm not saying, that makes it bad. No, it isn't. Accidents happen, but the production on the side of like the camera work missing a lot of stuff, or I'm trying to think. Certain spots not going well because of like I said, the ladder breaking, or again, like falling off, something like that. It's just accidents happen, but there's ways to prevent it. And yeah, it was fine, but again, it could have been a lot better than it was. After Stadium Stampede, we got the only women's match on the card, keeping with like what AEW do, one women's match. Not much to say, just like how the match didn't go that long, under 10 minutes. It was Saraya versus Toni Storm versus Britt Baker versus Hikaru Shida for the women's championship, and immediately we knew who was going to win. It was going into it, it was most likely Saraya was going to win. Hometown, her big, like, I don't want to say return match, but her first title shot and everything. And she was the first person to come out, and she came out with her family, and when she had Queen's We Will Rock You, and it was immediately, right, yes, she's winning that match. Straight away, it was like, right, sorry Shida, you're just a transitional champion, and that. And that's about it, like, the biggest noteworthy thing, besides, like, the breakup of the Outcasts was the only other thing that was worth mentioning, as, like, Saraya's mum was at ringside along with all of her family, and Toni went to, like, strike Britt, but Britt ducked. She hit Saraya's mum, and then Saraya snapped, and then Toni, like, turned and was hitting Saraya more hard than she should have if they were, like, on the same page, even though she accidentally hit her mum, which led to Ruby running down when Saraya was not placed with her neck on the exposed ring on the turnbuckle, and Toni was going to obviously target it, and then Toni turned on Ruby, and Ruby just walked off after coming out straight away, which was kind of pointless. Yeah, and Britt and Shida really didn't play much into this match, and it really showed as, like, the match went on, because it was the main focus was on the self-destruction of the Outcasts. That being true, though, there was some cool spots. I mean, or one spot in particular. Hang on, where is it? There was a spot where Britt hit a stomp on Toni, who was in Saraya's, like, I can't remember what her submission is, but she's, like, got her in a submission move low on the ground, and Britt stomped out. It was a very good spot, and then that led to, like, the ending of the match where Britt had Saraya and Toni were out the ring. Britt and Shida were fighting, and Britt had her in the lockjaw. Toni came in with the belt, about to hit Britt. Saraya had the spray paint or mist, whatever it is. Did it in Toni's face. Hit the rampage. and she is the new champion, and that. So, yeah, like I said, not much to say about the match. Wasn't that surprising that Saraya won. Great ending spot, because obviously the ref pinning Saraya, who covered Tony, but Brick couldn't get out the lockjaw submission quick enough to break up the pin. So yeah, all in all, a bit of fun, but it disappointing that it was the shortest match on the card and probably the weakest match on the whole show, because of they tried ramming in like a 15-minute match into less than 10 minutes, and it showed, because it was like the story just from the bell, they were going really quick, and it showed.